Good morning, Suzuki Science. This is a message for, doesn't really matter which grade. I hope this Thursday morning finds you well. I'm looking forward to the warm-up that's going to happen at some point in April. It's an interesting question to ask how many of you think that it's normal for it to snow in April, and many of us forget that every year it does. We normally do have some kind of significant snowfall in April, but it's easy to forget when you're actually in that month. So one of the things we looked at yesterday, just for a participation, fun, was looking at COVID again and conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories are something that most people have at least one pet conspiracy theory that they kind of agree with, or that they're really just, oh, this makes me so angry that people believe this. And so I proposed this COVID-19 5G conspiracy theory, which is probably one of the more absurd ones, which many of you did agree with. You agreed that this was an absurd conspiracy theory, and then you went on to propose some of your own. There are so many, this era, this uncertainty, there's a lot of people out there that are really keen on putting a wedge into society and making people split apart for whatever reason. I'm not going to get into the whole societal issues here, but I did want to talk about some of the comments that you guys had mentioned in here. A number of you believe that this virus was constructed in a lab in some country and then released as bioterrorism. Okay. A number of you do believe the government knows more and has a variety of technologies that they're holding back. A couple of you believe that Area 51 in Nevada is an actual holding site for alien technology. There are quite a few others that were in here that were proposed. One of the things that I can talk to, because I'm not going to talk about the legitimacy of these conspiracy theories, and it's fun as long as it's taken in the right light, as long as you're not hurting anybody, as long as you're not making real decisions based on someone's proposal that they've been able to get online and people have been able to then push. There's a thing called confirmation bias that we see a lot of in 2020 with the internet, where once upon a time, if you had an idea that was kind of absurd, then you'd say it and 2 or 3 people might hear you and then like, okay, whatever. But now online, it's easy to find anybody who can agree with something. And so when you find these people that have absurd ideas, it's typically other people who will kind of, that absurd idea seems kind of real. And then you get this group of people, and then you get a movement, and then you get a viral push of some kind of misinformation, and then that might lead to really a bad way of promoting conspiracy theories. But some people did talk about the harm that's happening to certain members of society. The first one I want to talk about is someone mentioned the idea that pandemics happen every 100 years. All right, so that is misleading. So there's misinformation out there that says in 2020, every 100 years before this, there's been a pandemic. And so 2020, it's inevitable. Okay, so first of all, that's the reasoning and the logic behind it does not make a lot of sense. The idea that a pandemic happens every 100 years. So let's look back. In 1920, there was the 1920 flu, but actually the 1920 flu began in 1918. So you're saying, okay, that's only 2 years off, so about every 100 years. Okay, go back to 1820, cholera. That also did not begin in 20, because the conspiracy theory is that the magic number of 20 is what kind of spells doom for this pandemic. So 1820 was 1817, and it was not 1820. And then in 1720, they mentioned the plague. That was not a pandemic. That was a epidemic that happened in a very localized region. You can find epidemics happening all the time, probably every 2, 3, 4 years. Lately, we've been seeing epidemics every year in some part of the world. But a pandemic did not happen in the 1700s. All right? So a lot of the information around this every 100 year or so, it's people are pulling out the stuff that they think really supports their thoughts. Another part that I want to talk to was the idea that certain demographics are being focused on as the culprit for this pandemic. And we know that the Asian community has been one of the demographics that has been targeted. So there's some really good articles. I'd encourage many of you to either read or to share with your friends or family about the why we shouldn't be focusing on particular demographics, and why we shouldn't be blaming somebody who's your neighbor who lives beside you has nothing, that has as much to do with the pandemic as you do. There's also various demographics that are, unfortunately, based on how they're trying to protect themselves, they're also being or feeling that they are being persecuted, we'll say, profiled because of the fact that they're wearing a mask, and that might be associated with criminal behavior that's associated with their demographic. So that's an interesting release as well. Other things I've seen online this past week that I thought might be interesting for you to see what's on my desktop. I watched this video about a group of people who decided to make a scale version of the solar system, and they went out to, I think it was somewhere in Nevada or somewhere there's a desert in the south, and they needed basically 7 miles of open desert in order to show the appropriate relative distances of the planets to the sun in our solar system. And so that was really interesting. In addition to what's happening with COVID, there's other diseases that are still happening. So in Zimbabwe, the malaria, when we talk about this a lot in grade 11 bio, malaria is something that is still taking many more lives than the coronavirus. And because of the repercussions of all the hospitals and a lot of the medical care being directed towards COVID, there's a lot of other treatments, cancer treatments, specialized operations, and then diseases like malaria that are becoming more prevalent and more deadly because we're not taking care of that. Are you moving? Are you being active? As I talk to a lot of students on the phone or online, a lot of them are kind of sitting in their room, not being active at all. There's many ways for you to be active without running around outside. And so I encourage you to, I was looking at this article here. It was from Garmin, so the same one who makes my watch here. And they propose many ways for you to stay active. You don't need an indoor bike. You don't need a treadmill. You can still do other things to keep your fitness up. One of my favorite movies is The Wizard of Oz. And so I was reading this article about the lady who played the Wicked Witch. And I don't know if you know anything about being typecast. So that's where you, like, let's say you were, I'll go with Star Wars, and you play Luke. And so the actor that played Luke, because it was such a popular movie, it would be very difficult for him to play any other character. Or the actor who played Harry Potter, it might be difficult for him to play any other character because everyone associates him with Harry Potter. And so he become typecast in this role. So the lady who played the Wicked Witch, she had the perfect features for the stereotypical witch. And during the movie, during a certain scene where she, did a ball of flame and she disappeared, she actually got burned during one of the takes. She got 3rd-degree burns on her face and on her hands. She had to wear gloves throughout the rest of the filming. But after she played the Wicked Witch, she was forever associated when she walked down the street, because she had these very distinctive features, as being the Wicked Witch. And all the kids with their parents would look at her and say, "Ooh, is that?" She said that when kids recognized her as the Wicked Witch, many of them were disappointed because she dies at the end. Oops, I just ruined it. And she the kids see that she's still alive, and they're like seriously disappointed. They don't understand how she's still alive. The little kids we're talking about. I'm always looking for positive moments. And I like this quote here: "A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." That's kind of a nice quote. I love Krispy Kreme donuts, but I don't know if I would be willing to line up in that car line. Look at that. It just goes and goes and goes and goes. I guess I really would have to have nothing else to do for the day. But that lineup is insane, right? Goes to the drive-thru, goes around, snakes, and it goes down, and then it's off the picture. So I like Krispy Kreme, but I don't know if I like it that much. certain parts of the world, you're not allowed to leave your home unless you're going shopping or walking your dog. I think exercise might have been a part of it. But in this part, this lady, she decided to take her turtle for a walk. And I can sympathize because I have 2 turtles and a tortoise. And she was fined for breaking the rules of quarantine because she decided to take her turtle for a walk. That was kind of funny. There's this back and forth about what you're supposed to do in terms of breakfast. Is breakfast the most important meal of the day, or is it even important to eat breakfast? So a lot of our understanding, a lot of the information we hear about eating, a lot of it was staked about 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and many times they were put into a commercial as someone was promoting a particular kind of food that they wanted people to eat, a particular cereal or pancake or whatnot. So this was an interesting article that talked about the importance of breakfast and the importance of eating certain foods during the day. And we are learning much more about how the body works and how it digests food, and coming to some realizations about the importance of certain meals. There are many people, and I know that Suzuki, we had proposed the idea of raising monarchs, because the monarch population, they're at risk due to climate change and some pollution. And so there's, I think, anywhere from 200 to 500,000 monarchs raised per year in captivity, and they're hand raised and then they're released. And the hope is that they'll help the global population of monarchs, and we'll be able to fix the monarch crisis. Now, the studies have shown that many of the monarchs that are raised by hand are actually, they're not the same as wild monarch butterflies. There's a part of their wing development that is stunted, and they're unable to direct themselves to Mexico and further south. And this means that hand rearing the monarchs, even though it might increase the monarch population, doesn't contribute to the overall health of this migratory monarch population that goes back and forth between the south and the north. Animal kingdom, there are many different phylums. One of the phylums is Cnidaria. Cnidaria includes your jellyfish. They also include these little small things called mixozoans, and they're parasitic, and we've found that they've left the oceans and they've made their way into certain hosts, mammals, and they're parasitic inside of them. That's kind of scary. In terms of your work, the flip grids, they seem to be very successful. Most of you in the various classes seem to have contributed. So that was nice to see. For the grade 11s, grade 12s, and the grade 10s, all of you, not all of you, but most of you who were interested in doing the learning have come in and submitted your flip grids, so I've been watching those. And a couple of them you've been able to comment, which is great. One of the things that was interesting was that we had this Earth Day Padlet, where you're able to contribute some of the things that you may have or may want to do that involves doing something nice for the earth or being outside in nature. And so a few of you participated in that, which was nice to see. And if you didn't get a chance to see what some of your peers posted, I encourage you to go in and just kind of read through. There was no opportunity to comment on what they had put in there, but it's still nice just to read this nice little sampling of a variety of Suzuki science students. So I'm asking you also to go to this really quick poll survey, and for those of you who have been attending any of the past 3 Wild Wednesdays, we'll call it the Wild Wednesday Streaming Service, there are certain animals that have been our star, will have the potential to be stars, and I'm asking you to share with us which one do you think that one should be. Milkshake, Pebbles, Tsunami, Thor, Lash, or Whiplash? There's a couple other questions as well, so complete those. It'll take you all of 10 seconds and we'll be good to go. For tomorrow, you're supposed to complete a debate, a micro debate, and in this micro debate you're supposed to find a partner. So you have information on how to contact people in the class. If you can't, then just put a comment in the Google Classroom saying that you need a partner, and hopefully someone will respond. And to do this micro debate, you're coming into our D2L classroom, which we haven't been to in a little while. You're going to go to the calendar. It's probably the easiest place to see it. And on the calendar, under this week, you'll see this thing called cell specialization. It's the same announcement, so it doesn't matter what day you click. I'll click on more. And I'll see cell specialization discussion topic. So I click on that link. And you'll see the instructions for the activity that you're working on. You're focusing on either precision medicine between you and your partner or transgenics between you and your partner. If you chose precision medicine, one of you chooses yes, one of you chooses no. If you chose transgenics, one of you chooses yes, one of you chooses no. Or someone had asked, I think it was Juria, or I believe so, he asked if he could do a debate between precision medicine and transgenics. That's a possibility as well. As long as you're involved in a critical conversation, I'm happy with that. And then what you do is you click on start a new thread. You give it the information I told you to. So you're going to put your names. And you're going to indicate what it is you're talking about. And then you start your conversation. Right? So one of you will write something in here. And then you post it. And once you post it, then your partner will respond to it. And then once they respond, then you guys can have one more back and forth, and then that's good, right? So I will look for several of these posts in the discussion forum to see if you've completed the task. Also, grade 10s, you're submitting the Google Doc in whatever form you have completed. Remember, there's a green for the minimum, and then there's yellow for what I think you should complete in order to make sure you have fewer gaps.